notes to sing. You can sing most anything.
That was great, Junior Choir. Thank you. You have a future, I can tell. And so does our Chancel Choir have a future. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to First Unitarian Church, and happy Mother's Day to all for whom that applies. Many women's issues seem to surface on and around Mother's Day, like women waiting longer to have babies than in previous generations, balancing work and household chores, the ever-changing definition of feminism, and also the subject of equal pay for equal work. Utah is perhaps more notorious than any other state in failing to provide women with parity in salaries, or even close to parity. But at least the question of when Utah women will finally catch up to the earnings of men, that question has been answered this spring in a national Women and Earnings report issued by the Women's Policy Research. Here it is. If the current rate of progress since 1959 holds steady, the gender gap will be closed when infant girls today will be having great-grandchildren. At least, hey, it's nice to know when, to be given a date. So we are going to be holding a huge celebration in this church when women achieve equal pay. Mark your calendars. The year will be 2102. Symbol of light and of knowledge, symbol of warmth and freedom. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. Here we gather to celebrate hope and the infinite possibilities of love. For our first hymn this morning, I hope you found the words on your pew as you came in, because that's going to be our hymn. And I also want all the kids to know that following the hymn, please stay in your pews. You'll be going to Sunday school a little later this morning. So now let's sing If Every Woman in the World.
think that song is the best recipe for peace that you find anywhere. It's so commonsensical, you wonder, what's been taking us so long? Oh, no. I want to say a few words about pretty definitely, about the most difficult job in the universe. And that is being a director of religious education in a Unitarian Universalist church. When you think about it for a moment, man, that could be crazy stuff. Am I right, Mary? That could be pretty crazy. You've got an awesome responsibility in 1 hour a week to help kids understand what it means to be good and to do good, not because of some mystical system of rewards or punishments in the afterlife, but because we want to do good and be good for its own sake, that as human beings we have a responsibility to help one another, or as the song says, to reach out to all and help build peace. This is what we hope to do. And so the director of religious education has this enormous task, helping kids understand their place in the world, bringing kids together in a community, and also allowing them to grow. And as they get older, making sure that they get a chance to learn more about their roots, the Unitarian Universalist history, by arranging trips to Boston, helping them in the coming of age program, and then the high school kids, of course, making sure that they are successful in their social service project, which they have done every year for many, many years now. Mary Krona Ekstrand has been doing this full-time now for 5 years, and in addition to working with our children so professionally and so lovingly, she has also taken on a little extra work, and that is providing some really good educational experiences for the adults of this congregation. As we heard the kids say, it is a difficult stage in life being an adult, and Mary has some programs to help adults through this difficult stage of their lives. And this is a Sunday where we want to express our appreciation to Mary for the 5 wonderful years, committed years, professional years, dear years. I know that everyone on the staff is going to miss you. The parents are going to miss you. I want to thank you so much. And in the, okay, right on cue, Nancy, come on up. And the woman who has worked really closely with Mary the last 3 years is her assistant, Nancy Mose. And Nancy, take it away.
Got to get the step stool. I like coming up here because it's the one time I'm taller than all the rest of you, so this is good. So I'm Nancy, and I've been working with Mary for 3 years now. And before that time, I didn't really know her very well because she was like a 9 o'clocker and I was an 11 o'clocker, and you just don't see each other much. But I have had the pleasure and honor of working with her for the last 3 years and seeing how incredibly difficult her job was and thinking, I never want to do all that myself. So I've written a little poem here a la Dr. Seuss, and I apologize to him, but I've done my best. So, for Mary. Oh, the places you've been. Thank you, dear Mary, for all of your work. With all of your duties, you never did shirk. You have brains aplenty, and you used them to teach a diverse group of kids with special attention for each. From gathering us together in circle time sharing, then sending us off to our teachers so caring, your hard work was done behind the scenes, the planning and emails, constant stream. The pageants ran smoothly, well, most of the time, but we always enjoyed them. The results were sublime. To Boston, to Portland, to Montana and San Fran, building Hogan's, helping homeless, getting to know our UU clan. You've touched the lives of many a church member by teaching great classes, turning sparks to embers. Finally, you've given me a great gift, your knowledge, your support, my spirits you'd lift. Memories of your efforts abound in our hearts. We're truly grateful for your skills and your smarts. We'll send you on your way with full hearts and minds and wish you much joy in the new adventures you'll find. I'm going to have her come up. Picked out for you. And also what I forgot to bring in is there's a little book in Elliott Hall that's available for all of you to sign and write notes to Mary. A lot of the adults in the congregation have written you special notes to thank you for being here, and the kids have done a nice little scrapbook for her. So if you haven't had a chance to sign the book yet and you'd like to say some words to Mary after service, it'll be in Elliott Hall, and we would appreciate that. So thank you so much, Mary.
And as a contributing thank you to Mary, her sons will take the first verse of the following song as a thank you and a happy Mother's Day. And then from the rest of the crowd, or from the rest of the choir, also continuing thanks to Mary and to their respective mothers.
Small and white, clean and bright,
I'd like to share a reading with you this morning, written by Emerson Blake. And I tell you, if I were ever a writer, my nom de plume would be Emerson Blake. I wonder if he made that up. But anyway, that's too much of a coincidence. Those are my favorite writers, Emerson Blake. And this could be found in actually the last issue of Orion magazine. At the age of 8, I was dispatched to a suburban summer camp. I don't remember much about it except that A, there were a lot of rules, and B, I hated it. At the end of the third day, I announced to my mother that I wasn't going back, and she said that was fine with her as long as I came up with a new plan for how I was going to spend my summer. Deep down, I'd known all along what I wanted, to spend the summer at my grandmother's in the rural South. And so a scheme was quickly hammered out, and a few days later I was put on a Trailways bus alone and traveled from my hometown of Philadelphia to Elizabeth City, North Carolina. My uncle picked me up at the bus station and delivered me to my grandmother's. I spent that summer at her house, and the next 7 summers, too. My days there consisted of wandering the woods and fields, traipsing through swamps, swimming and fishing in Lake Matamuskeet, and capturing all manner of animals. I ran wild. My personality has been shaped by many things, but nothing comes close to having the effect on me that those summers did. What I learned there was nothing less than who I am, what I value, and how I orient myself to the world. There have been some stories in the news recently about parents who have gotten into hot water of one kind or another for not supervising their children closely enough. A Florida mom arrested for allowing her daughter to go to a park alone. And a Maryland couple reported to the local Children's Protective Services for letting their children walk home alone from school. Such stories reflect many things about our culture, but mostly they reveal a society that pretends it can seal itself off from the reality of the outside world. And that has become pathologically intolerant of risk. We have become overprotective, leery of independence, too controlling of our children, and even addicted to safety and security. So much of that, we might ask ourselves, at what cost? And we might also ask ourselves about what safety really means. What is safer for a child? Running loose in the mud of an empty lot, or sitting on the couch plugged into a bunch of electronic devices? Is it safe to lead someone to believe that he or she will always have teachers and authorities present? Safe not to know how to talk to people who are different? Safe not to know what it's like to be startled by the world? I have a son. I don't want him to feel fear or be hurt in any way. I want him to be able to navigate the world with confidence and resilience and good judgment. He's not going to learn that when someone and the specter of safety is constantly hovering above him. I know I have to let him ride off on his bicycle. I know I have to let him walk into the woods alone. Well, evolution has prepared us for this. We have both the tools and innate desire for connection to the world around us. And we will never be able to grapple fully with the world's problems unless we are plunged and immersed in it. The world of woods and water and fields and the sidewalks that children use to walk home from school are among our greatest teachers. Perhaps it'll not be my generation that wrenches creation back from the brink. Perhaps it'll be the next one. But they will only be able to do so if they know it and love it, were once loose and free to be in the world. So we have quite a long tradition in this congregation to welcome not only everybody who are new, have been here for a while, but especially want to point out those who have been here for the very first time. And before we ask those new people to stand, I do want to say that there's one person here today whom I have known for 7.5 months and has finally come to this church for the very first time. And I would appreciate it very much if my granddaughter, Sophie Rain Goldsmith, would stand up and welcome Sophie for the very first time at the Unitarian Church. Oh yeah, and that's my son. He's been here before. Now, not to upstage anyone, I do really want to welcome everyone who is new here for the first time. Anybody who could please stand up and let us say good morning, welcome on this Mother's Day. Anybody here for the first time? Welcome, and glad you came. And I hope you come more frequently than my granddaughter, who lives in Phoenix, so she has a good excuse. Newcomers, there's a great welcoming table in our social hall, Elliott Hall, and grab some coffee and take a look at all the great things that this congregation does and has to offer. Please, everyone, take a good look at the announcements, again, full of just wonderful things that we do. And, well, that was a short visit. Bye, Sophie. Oh, well. Just want to announce that next Sunday is going to be a big Sunday in the liturgical life of this church, in that we're going to be singing, the choir will be singing a requiem. This year is going to be the Rudder Requiem. It's a time for us to honor those who, in this congregation, whom we have lost in the preceding year. and also to recognize all the people whom we have loved so much and are no longer with us. It's a very special Sunday program. Please be here. And that Sunday will be followed, that Requiem will be followed by our congregational meeting. So it is indeed very, very important. And if you're wondering how you might have some sustenance between the end of the service and then the congregational meeting, our youth will be selling sandwiches as a fundraising endeavor. They're awfully good at fundraising, and the best part about it is they make it a lot of fun. And this coming Saturday, on the 16th of May, from 6 to 10 in Elliott Hall, they are putting together a coffee house. And it is going to be an incredible experience because they have, in very cunning fashion, lined up some great musicians, wonderful bands, including our own cabaret singers, and David Owens will be there. So it's an unbelievable inexpensive fee to get in. It's $8 if you buy your tickets during coffee hour, $10 at the door. I encourage you, buy your tickets today. And you'll not only help our youth go on to do their service projects, their social service projects, which they learn how to give to the world. And that, that actually costs some money. And so we'll be helping them. And tickets will be available. Laurie Shields will be selling the tickets for the coffee house on the far east wall. And also remember that the pledge drive never ends. In fact, Henry Whiteside has set up a table right when you walk out that door. So you can't miss it. And be sure to, if you haven't made a pledge yet for this church's budget for next year, please do so. So the offering will now gratefully be received, a chance to greet one another and bid each other a happy Mother's Day. What does it take to be a good parent? And could we ever find 3 people in a room who would agree on what good parenting really means? To what degree should a parent practice in this risk aversion? How much should a parent hover? How heavily should a parent be involved in steering a child towards success in this rather complicated and highly competitive world? And what responsibilities do parents have, if any, to improve the chances of a child ending up on the sunny side of life? The majority leader of the New York State Senate, Dean Skelos, used his fatherly influence to apply pressure on companies to gain employment for his 32-year-old son and ensure that this son would receive a hefty commission for his work. The state senator's last efforts squeezed a company to pay his son $220,000 in commissions alone. This is generally not considered good practice for a top state legislator who, by the way, just got arrested and will likely be ousted. But I'm sure he thinks of himself as a really good parent. I mean, look what he has done for his son. Where do you draw the line? My father used his influence to get me a job as an elevator operator in the building where he worked in Union Square in New York City. It was a summer job. I was 17 years old and took home $80 a week. Frankly, I didn't have an easy time at that job at first, not always getting the elevator exactly even with the floor. You know, it's one of these things that you had to operate like this. Sometimes my passengers would need to jump off about a foot or so, which was especially problematic if you were wearing heels. I never got fired, probably because I was my father's son, and the office workers in that building were unusually good-natured for being New Yorkers. What does it take to be a good parent? Our reading this morning disclosed the fact that a Florida mom got arrested for allowing her daughter to go to a park by herself. Although there was no mention of the child's age or the condition of the park, it does raise the question about how to raise independent children before shipping them off to college. And even in college, many parents continue to run interference for their children, arguing grades with their professors and policies with their deans. And the reading this morning also referenced a Maryland couple who were reported to the local Children's Protective Services for letting their children walk home from school alone. Good parenting seems to be quite subjective, which still doesn't preclude blowing the whistle on parents who want to at least attempt to raise their children with the belief that the world is really not that scary. Let me say a word here, if I may, about my granddaughter, Lila. No child anywhere can scream the way she does. Lila can shatter glass. Her cries heard miles and miles away. And her lungs, her enormous capacity of the lungs, will give her an edge over her classmates should she choose to be a minister in her adult life. So powerful. So Lila and her big sister were being driven to school by Mom when in the back seat, the world was not quite to Lila's satisfaction. She let loose in blood-curdling screams. The mom pulled over, and for just the few remaining blocks, put the car seat in the front passenger side in order to comfort her 4-month-old. This is definitely a no-no, but sometimes instincts take over. Pulling into the school parking lot, the transgression was immediately noticed and reported to school authorities. When a 40-year-old mother gets called into the principal's office and reprimanded with threats and warnings, you know it's not going to be a good day. I mean, you just feel. So, what does it take to be a good parent? Recently, a seafaring family, Charlotte and Eric Kaufman, with their 2 daughters, aged 3 and 1, took off on their 36-foot sailboat from Mexico to New Zealand. They didn't get too far before they faced trouble in steering the craft, and one of the girls got sick. And so they sought the emergency assistance from the Coast Guard and the United States Navy. Sailboats are not my forte, but remain on my bucket list of things I still hope to learn. My inexperience with sailing actually prompts me to question whether the wisdom of taking such young children on such an ambitious voyage was really a good idea or not. But I don't know for sure. It could have been quite an exciting adventure, perhaps even fodder for the girls' college application essay. But the backlash against these parents overall reveal just how judgmental society is when it comes to evaluating other parents. In this case, people demanded that the social services remove the two girls from their parents' custody. It feels like parenting these days is becoming more difficult than ever before. And it's not just the pressures of juggling work schedules to accommodate children's schedules. It's not just assessing risk management in raising children. It's not just that cribs, strollers, car seats that today's young parents grew up with have now been declared hazardous to their children's lives. Or the feeling that if their children are not computer savvy by the time they're toddlers, they will be denied college admission. It's more than all of that. Robert Putnam, social scientist at Harvard University, who became virtually a household name with the publication of his book, you'll remember, Bowling Alone, has underscored now an additional parent anxiety in his new book called Our Kids, The American Dream in Crisis. As the title suggests, he launches a high-level discussion on upward mobility and the effects of widening income gaps that have brought huge advantages to children at the top of the economic ladder. When you think about it, that may have always been the case, but there was enough of a middle class until not too long ago to sustain the American dream for many, if not most Americans, that in fact it was always somehow possible for those below to work themselves up. That was the American dream. It was all fair game. Regardless of where you start, you always had the chance to work your way up and grab that dream. But Putnam shows with far too many disturbing statistics that upward mobility is a trend that is definitely on the way out. Subsequently, it has become highly unlikely that our kids will ever catch the dream of fulfilling their ambition and living the life they hope to. As a rule, we've always maintained that education is supposed to level the playing field. Horace Mann called it the great equalizer. Now it's closer to the great fortifier, compounding the advantages of class, since the affluent come better prepared and more able to pay. So what are parents supposed to do? How must they play the game? How must they parent? How do they parent, knowing that there are fewer opportunities for their children to succeed? Parents are not about to lower their expectations of what their children might accomplish in their lifetimes. So instead, they have jumped on a fierce campaign to teach their children to become high achievers. And the avenue by which this is pursued often rests in instilling in their children a very high sense of self-esteem. The theory is to crush any self-doubt children may have with lavish praise. Heap a lot of praise on the kids. Don't let them feel a shred of self-doubt. This represents really nothing all that new. David Brooks reminded us just a couple of weeks ago of that classic line by Dorothy Parker when she said that American children aren't raised, they are incited. They're given food, shelter, and applause. And David Brooks added, that's 1,000 times more true today. Children are incessantly told how special they are. A local writer from here, Salt Lake, I'm sure many of you know, Teresa Jordan, who often joins her husband Hal Cannon in offering much wit, wisdom, storytelling, and song. Well, Teresa has taken some shots at all this relentless inflation of our children's self-esteem. She mentions how preschoolers are learning to sing to the tune of Frere Jacques. These kids are now learning, I am special, look at me, look at me. And the older siblings are reading, I'm looking at the most important person in the world engraved on the washroom mirror. Wow, I'm the most important person in the world. Interesting. Now, I don't think anyone is pining for the good old days when pride was considered a sin. In fact, when Pope Gregory hammered out the 7 deadly sins in the 6th century, pride took top billing. Parents today walk a tightrope. How do you instill strong self-esteem in your children so they will not wilt under the cutthroat competition they face? And at the same time, how do you keep from raising a narcissist? How do you instill confidence in children minus the arrogance, vanity, smugness? In Proverbs chapter 16, we are warned, pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before stumbling. Better it is to be a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil. Well, since I know many of you are not that familiar with the Bible, I'm going to read that passage one more time. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before stumbling. Better it is to be a humble spirit with the lowly than to divide the spoil. Well, that line of thinking expressed in the King James Bible won't wash with today's parents. Although always wary of people who are haughty, parents have plans for their children other than to hang around the lowly. They want to grab hold of the spoils. They want to make sure their kids grab hold of the spoils. And the injection of humility, wow, that just wreaks havoc with the parent. And I'll tell you why. Because the odd thing is that in countless studies throughout our country, most parents, and that includes everyone, most parents, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, indicate that they prefer, all parents actually prefer for their kids to be kind, compassionate, and helpful more than being successful. And yet, frightened by narrowing prospects for their children succeeding in education, careers, economic security, they opt instead now for cultivating self-esteem within their children to somehow give them some kind of edge in this diminishing market of success. Now, parents may know that compassion is the right answer in a survey or research study, and I bet it's also true in their hearts. But tiger moms are out in force, and parents help or actually do science fair entries, write essays for their children, assignments for their children, while browbeating teachers for higher grades. And all the while, they aim to make their children feel invincible, invaluable, kingpin, the best, full of self-esteem. I make no judgment because I know that parenting is hard, especially these days. But it may prove shattering for most parents to discover that self-esteem does not lead to better grades. It's been proven. Your child may feel really good about himself or herself. The child may be borderline haughty and definitely feel entitled. praised to the max, but a team of Florida State University researchers reviewing, what an awesome task, reviewing 15,000 studies, concluded that self-esteem had no bearing on better grades. In fact, it's the other way around. Good grades bring on a higher self-esteem. Furthermore, self-esteem didn't even make kids behave any better. The review actually learned that kids with high self-esteem may actually be more likely to experiment with drugs and sex more so than their less confident peers. Although far too many parents believe that self-esteem is the best ammunition for helping their kids navigate a complex world that has little patience for self-doubters, the review by these 15,000 studies on self-esteem actually produced an idea that many will actually find quite helpful. And so, if you can imagine, somehow sorting through 15,000 studies and coming up with some kind of, maybe not the answer or response, or what can we learn from this? What can we draw from all this research? They say that instead of focusing on self-esteem as an end in itself, we would be better off concentrating on developing in our children a sense of integrity. Integrity. Now, I can't honestly tell you if teaching kids integrity is a new kind of radical idea or as old as the Bible itself. Intertwined with integrity, we'll find honesty and morals, measured by the truthfulness of one's actions. How often do we use that as a standard of measure for our kids, for ourselves? The truthfulness of our actions. Now that may mean not writing the college essay, knowing that other parents probably will. The question hangs over parents like a dark cloud. In a competitive world, let's call it in a competitive market, growing tighter every day, is there room? Is there room for honesty and integrity? Is there room for that, or are the stakes too high? Remember the echo, better it is to be a humble spirit with the lowly. Well, that's the wisdom in Proverbs 16, but it's been declared wrong now, very misleading. Clayton Christensen, a professor at Harvard Business School, wrote about the importance of humility for leaders in society. Humility, combined with clearly delineated values and a sense of purpose, is paramount. His book, How to Measure Your Life, was inspired by his asking students to describe the most humble person they knew. What an assignment. Write about the most humble person you know. And in his book, he says, one characteristic of these humble people stood out. They all had a high level of self-esteem. They knew who they were, and they felt good about who they were. Humility was not defined by self-deprecating behavior or attitudes, but by the esteem with which you regard others. So when you come right down to it, it seems that self-esteem is important, but you need to acquire it, develop it, through living a life with integrity. If the moral center is in place and one's values internalized and manifest in the world, then self-esteem leads not to being haughty, but just the opposite, humility. You need to be comfortable in your own skin in order to be humble. So what has noticeably changed since Proverbs 16 is that humility does not foreshadow dwelling with the lowly. It's a characteristic among successful leaders. It's not easy being parents these days. The American dream has shrunk in its accessibility. Of course, you want your child to succeed, to somehow grab hold of that dream. Can you risk these days? Can you risk taking the high road? Integrity, honesty, morality. Or is there too much to lose? These days especially. How do we show our love for our children? How far do we push on their behalf? How much do we teach them about being truthful to their actions? I think these questions have always been there. But when you face them head on, as the parents must today, you begin to appreciate the complexity of arriving at some understanding of what good parenting actually means. In a world of shrinking opportunities, can parents and children today still lead lives with integrity? Big question for our parents today. Can we conclude our service, turning our hymn books, please, to number 295. As we extinguish the chalice, may we follow the dictates of an open heart and an honest mind. May we find moments of grace, always loving both wisdom and gentleness. May integrity be our strength and kindness our guide. Amen.